Remember being young, angry, and lonely. I was in my early teenage years with no real friends and spent the summers alone when most people were either hanging out or partying or doing whatever they do. And when I started high school, I was massively antisocial and introverted, and I would spend most of my days not speaking to anyone at all and just going home and being upset that no one had talked to me or interacted with me, even though I had made no real effort to socialize. Because of this, I was online a lot, playing games on YouTube, social media, and it was because of this, it made it really easy for me in my younger years to take some of the first steps many do into the alt-right pipeline, unfortunately. I'd watched many of those anti-feminist YouTube videos, which were just compilations of hateful and out of context clips of people who were rightfully angry about many topics. And this was my first introduction to many topics I barely understood. These topics were being presented to me by many faceless, so-called skeptic YouTubers who convinced me that anyone on the left, mainly feminists, people who are trans, people who are BLM activists, or just teaching me that, saying to me that all these people hated me because I was a so-called straight white male. And I believed them. I believed that all these groups of people just hated me because I was myself. I was fed this lie and I ate it up. I barely knew who I was, and I felt like an outcast, and it was because of that feeling that it was so easy to convince me that these groups of people hated me, even though I had no experience with these people whatsoever. I felt like someone was wronging me or preventing me from being happy. All this anger and confusion was concentrated into these people I didn't understand. I began adopting these crude, edgy behaviors I learned from these online figures. I said horrible, offensive things. And the worst part about it is that when I said these things to certain people, I got friends. I met many people who liked many of the same things I did. These people copied the same behavior from these other online people just as much as I did. So I kept doing it. And for a while, I thought I was doing the right thing, but it never felt as good as I thought it did. I had these friends, and it was just constant conversations of just insulting each other, sharing dark jokes, saying vulgar slurs and swears, and playing offensive games, saying offensive things, making fun of groups of people that we didn't even understand. Never once did we ever talk about each other, check in on each other, say encouraging things to one another. We just said hurtful things about other people. I never felt like I was acting like myself. I just felt like I was constantly putting on a mask and acting for my friends, and that never felt like me. No one ever asked to hang out with me after school. I was never invited to anything. The sinking, lonely feeling ever present in my body was still there, even though I had people who I thought were my friends. I never felt genuine when I said anything. I never felt that that friendship was genuine. I just said things I thought they liked to hear, things they laughed at, they responded positively to. It never made me feel good. And I just got to the point where I just had enough. I didn't feel like I was appreciated. And to be honest, I probably wasn't. I left that friend group, I ghosted them and moved on. And rather quickly, it was back to business as usual. They went back to their normal everyday lives. I went back to mine, being lonely, angry, no one there to support me or to talk about things that I desperately wanted to talk about. I didn't know how important it was to talk about my feelings or how important it was to have someone there to listen and understand. So I was just back to being lonely and angry like I was before. I was still watching those right wing videos, the compilations of angry feminists and BLM advocates, and those videos that I idolized, the likes of these hateful people, hearing these words from people like Ben Shapiro and Milo Yiannopoulos, people who I now know are just hateful individuals farming hatred of young people like myself. And eventually I realized that something that changed my life forever. I just said to myself, why? Why am I watching this? I'm just making myself mad for no reason, for problems that I'm not even facing. No one is talking to me. No one's insulting me in real life. It's just these videos of people saying things that I interpreted as attacks on myself. It didn't feel good. So, while I didn't change immediately, I stopped watching those videos. I stopped partaking in this everyday hatred of a group of people I didn't even know or understand. I didn't change immediately, but it was the first and most important step in my long journey of self-discovery. In this long journey of realizing who I was and accepting individuals. I focused more on things that made me happy, made me laugh. And then, soon after a long time of being alone, through the help of an old friend that I knew in middle school, I found my way to a much happier life. I reconnected with this person, and it was through them I met an entire new group of people. The group of people who were part of these communities, which I used to shun and hate. And it was through talking with them, learning to understand them, listening to their stories, realizing that they're just as normal of a person as I was. And even just being there and watching a friend of mine go through a transition and actually knowing and talking to a transgender person, I learned the struggle of these groups of people. I learned the trans struggle, and I came to accept it. I actually began to do my own research on it and ask questions instead of just pointing and laughing at it like I did all those years ago. And now it is something I actively fight for. It was through having many of these people in this community that I learned to accept and love the entire LGBT community. And it was through watching many black men be murdered by police officers I learned the struggle of people of color in this country, and further educated myself on these subjects I failed to understand and neglected. And it was through all of this I ended up on the far right, all the way to the far left. Thanks to meeting all the right people who were willing to, all these people who were willing to put up with me, be patient with me, and teach me that I was able to learn, listen, and empathize with these struggles. And it was just something I wish I did a lot sooner, because it made me a lot happier. It made me a lot more aware of what was actually going on, and also made me much more angry, not only at myself, but everyone else who continued to act the way I used to. Even though it is so easy to just accept people, and how easy it is to learn and just listen and not just sit in an echo chamber of hatred. That sure feels good to be empathized whenever you bring up the fact that, oh, everybody hates me, even though nobody does. And at the end of the day, you're just throwing hate at a group of people that is already marginalized, already hated, and just wants to be accepted just as much as you do. But even after all that, out of high school, college, a failed relationship, I was just as antisocial as ever, and something still felt wrong. I never saw myself as attractive. Until my first relationship, I was forced to think about how I looked, how I presented myself. I didn't understand how someone could love me, think I was attractive, beautiful, handsome, how I looked or acted. I was never really self aware of how I dressed or presented myself because I was always so isolated, so quiet. It was only now I realized that I was never acting like myself. I was always suppressing parts of myself, never truly acting as who I really was. I only came to realize this after I met my current partner, the most important person I have ever met in my entire life, that I began to know who I truly was. I met her, she was cute, fun, and we became very fast friends, and then soon partners. We'd message each other every day. I was able to finally talk to someone about everything, and they would support and understand me. She was she's a trans woman, and she helped me realize and explore my own gender identity. Something I never really considered or took into account. Something that I just always before this accepted as fact, even though I never really spent the time to think about it. Even after all that time listening to other people's stories, I never looked inward at my own and asked myself if I was truly happy as who I was. And she helped me take the first steps to that, to this journey, ask myself these questions, and I soon began to realize something I wish I'd known all those years ago. I'm not a boy. Never was. I am a woman. It's a hard thing to accept. Even saying it now, There are doubts swimming around in my head, but the truth is clear to me now. I know it's a hard thing to get used to, even for me, but especially for people around them, since most of you have known me as a boy and think of me as such. It's in my username, Skully Dumbboy. I do plan on changing that for obvious reasons, but I know there are some of you who will not accept me, and now will probably hate me or want nothing to do with me, and it's fine. I do not need you or want you. I want to be happy. And this is the step I have to take to be on the road of happiness. I do not need you nagging me in the back seat, preventing me from getting there. If you do not like that I am changing my life for the better, well then see yourself out. I'll do just fine without you. My only hope is that all of you find out who you really are too someday. And that together we can create an environment where everyone is as accepted for who they are, not for what everyone else sees them as. I want to present myself as who I really am. I want to be genuine and hopefully inspire others to do the same. So, I'm coming out as trans, and I have a long journey ahead of me. And I hope that, like myself, you can all find lovely people to help start your own personal journey of self-discovery and happiness. Do not be afraid to ask others for help or talk to other people. Have conversations about yourself. Ask others for advice. Listen to other people's stories. Look inwards at yourself. Ask yourself if you're truly happy as who you are. And you may end up learning something about yourself you would have never learned otherwise. And you would have continued living your life with this nagging feeling in the back of your head, not knowing why you don't feel happy. You don't feel like yourself. You don't feel pretty, handsome, attractive. It's because you're not acting like you. Thank you for listening, if you've made it this far. If you want to support me, all I really need is just a comment showing your support. Or if you want to tell your own story, feel free to go ahead. Take this as an invitation to put yourself out there and tell your own story. That's all I need. Have a wonderful rest of your day or night, wherever you are.